In the late 1950s, Scotland lived in fear of a name that would become infamous: Peter Manuel, a story of terror, suspicion, and a trial that would leave its mark on history. But before we start, make sure you like and subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring you more stories like this. So get ready as we uncover the case of Peter Manuel.
January 6, 1958, a Monday morning in Uddingston, a suburb of Glasgow, Scotland. Peter Smart, 45 years old, did not arrive for work. He was an area manager for W&JR Watson building contractors. He was punctual, reliable, never missed a day without notice. When he failed to appear at the office, colleagues became worried. They telephoned his home at number 38 Sheepburn Road. There was no answer. They sent someone to check on him. The colleague arrived at the bungalow and knocked on the door. Silence. He looked through the windows. Everything appeared still. Something was wrong. He contacted the police. Officers arrived at Sheepburn Road and forced entry into the house. What they found inside would shock Scotland and expose one of the nation's most terrifying serial killers. Peter Smart lay dead in his bed. He had been shot through the head at point-blank range. In another bedroom, his wife Doris lay dead, also shot in the head while she slept. In a third bedroom, their 11-year-old son Michael had been killed the same way, shot through the head as he lay sleeping. All three members of the Smart family had been murdered in their beds. The house showed signs of disturbance, but not violence. Someone had been living there after the murders. Food had been eaten. The family cat had been fed. Leftovers from a hogmanay meal, the traditional Scottish New Year celebration, sat half-consumed in the kitchen. Brand new 5-pound notes that Peter Smart had been saving for a family holiday were missing. The family car, an Austin A35, was gone. Detective Chief Inspector William Munsey led the investigation. He immediately suspected Peter Manuel. Manuel was a 30-year-old career criminal from Birkinshaw, a small town near Glasgow. He had a long history of burglary, assault, and sexual violence. Police knew him well. And in the weeks before the Smart family died, Manuel had been a suspect in other murders across Lanarkshire. Just 9 days earlier, on December 28, 1957, 17-year-old Isabel Cook had vanished. She left her home in Mount Vernon to attend a dance at Uddingston Grammar School. She never arrived. Her boyfriend, Douglas Bryden, waited at the bus stop where they had arranged to meet. She never showed up. A massive search was launched. Police found her shoe. They found her handbag. They found torn pieces of her clothing scattered across a field. But they could not find Isabel. Chief Inspector Munsey had been leading the hunt for the missing girl when news came of the Smart family murders. He looked up from searching a field near a colliery shaft and saw Chief Constable John Wilson of Lanarkshire standing beside him. Wilson told him 3 people had been found shot dead in Uddingston. Munsey knew immediately this was connected. A serial killer was operating in Lanarkshire. The chief constable requested help from the City of Glasgow Police. Detective Superintendent Alex Brown and Detective Inspector Tom Goodall were seconded to the investigation. Together, the Glasgow and Lanarkshire detectives began piecing together what had happened. Forensic examination revealed that all 3 members of the Smart family had been shot with a Beretta pistol. The killer had fired at close range while they slept. Death would have been instant. After committing the murders in the early hours of New Year's Day 1958, the killer had stayed in the house for several days. He ate their food. He fed their cat. He lived among their corpses as if nothing had happened. Then he stole Peter Smart's holiday money, took the family car, and left. The break in the case came from an unexpected source. A bartender in a pub in Glasgow noticed Peter Manuel paying for rounds of drinks with brand new 5-pound notes. This was 1958. Cash machines did not exist. New banknotes, fresh from the bank with sequential serial numbers, were rare. The bartender became suspicious. He contacted police. Detectives traced the serial numbers. The notes belonged to Peter Smart. They had been taken from his home after he was murdered. Peter Manuel had been spending the dead man's money in pubs across Glasgow, buying drinks, drawing attention to himself, acting as if he had done nothing wrong. Police also had another piece of evidence. Manuel had written letters to William Watt while both men were in Barlinnie Prison months earlier. Watt was the husband of Marion Watt, who along with her 16-year-old daughter Vivian and her sister Margaret Brown had been shot dead in their beds in September 1956. Police had wrongly suspected William Watt of murdering his own family. He spent 67 days in custody before being released for lack of evidence. While in Barlinnie, Manuel had been held there serving 18 months for burglary. He wrote to Watt, taunting him, claiming he knew who really killed the Watt women. The letters contained details only the killer could know. Manuel was playing games, enjoying the power he held over Watt, reveling in the knowledge that an innocent man had been arrested for crimes Manuel himself had committed. On January 14, 1958, police arrived at the Manuel family home at number 32 4th Street in Birkinshaw. It was 3 in the morning. Manuel was asleep. Officers knocked loudly. Manuel's father, Samuel, answered. Detective Constable Andrew Stewart read out the arrest warrant. Manuel was being charged with the murder of the Smart family and with breaking into the home of a family named McMunn in Uddingston on January 4th. Manuel became verbally abusive. He shouted at the officers, "You have not found anything yet. You cannot take me." But he left with them voluntarily. At 11:10 that evening, he was formally charged with murdering the Smart family. He denied everything. The search of the Manuel house uncovered more evidence. Police found items stolen from the Smart home. They found clothing and personal belongings that did not belong to the Manuel family. The case against him strengthened with every discovery. Then, at 3 in the afternoon on January 15th, Detective Inspector McNeil and Detective Inspector Tom Goodall entered Manuel's cell. Manuel made them an offer. If his father was released, he would make a clean breast of everything. He would confess to all the crimes. He would take officers to where Isabel Cook was buried. He would show them where he had thrown the murder weapons into the River Clyde. Manuel wanted to protect his father. Samuel Manuel had provided alibis for his son multiple times. Police suspected the older man knew more than he admitted, but Peter Manuel loved his father. He could not bear the thought of him being charged as an accomplice, so he confessed. On January 16, 1958, 19 days after Isabel Cook disappeared, Manuel led police to a field near where she had vanished. He walked across the muddy ground, stopped, and looked down. "I think she is here," he said. "I think I am standing on her now." Officers dug where he indicated. They found Isabel's body buried in the earth. She had been raped and strangled with her own underwear. Manuel had killed her, buried her, and walked away. Over the following days, Manuel confessed to 8 murders. Anne Kenealens, 17 years old, raped and battered to death with an iron bar on a golf course in East Kilbeed in January 1956. Marion Watt, 45, her sister Margaret Brown, 41, and Marion's daughter Vivian Watt, 16, shot in their beds in High Burnside in September 1956. Sidney Dunn, a 36-year-old taxi driver, shot dead in Newcastle in December 1957. Isabel Cook, 17, raped and strangled in December 1957. And the Smart family, Peter Smart, 45, Doris Smart, his wife, Michael Smart, 11 years old, all shot in their beds as they slept on New Year's Day, 1958.
He stayed for nearly a week. He ate their leftover food. He sat in their chairs. He fed their cat. He went through their belongings, taking what he wanted. He found Peter Smart's holiday money, brand new 5-pound notes with sequential serial numbers. He took them. On one of the days he was living in the dead family's house, he took their car and drove around Uddingston.
He even gave a lift to a police officer who was searching for Isabel Cook. Manuel told the officer he thought police were not looking in the right places. He was taunting them. He knew where Isabel was. He had buried her himself. Eventually, Manuel left the Smart house. He dumped the car nearby and returned to his parents' home in Birkinshaw. He spent the stolen money in pubs, buying drinks for strangers, acting normal, as if he had not just murdered an entire family in their beds. The trial of Peter Manuel opened at Glasgow High Court on Monday, May 12, 1958. Lord Cameron presided. The proceedings lasted 14 days. Manuel was charged with 8 murders. The courtroom was packed. Hundreds of people queued from 5 in the morning, lining the streets all the way to Glasgow Cross, hoping to get a seat in the public gallery. This was the trial of the century. Scotland had never seen anything like Peter Manuel. Manuel pleaded not guilty. He withdrew his confessions, claiming police had coerced them. He was represented by Harold Leslie, W.R. Grieve, and A.M. Morrison. But on the 9th day of the trial, Manuel dismissed his lawyers. He would conduct his own defense. The decision astounded everyone present. A man on trial for 8 murders, facing the death penalty, representing himself. Lord Cameron later admitted that Manuel conducted his defense with a skill that is quite remarkable. He cross-examined witnesses, he challenged evidence, he presented arguments, but his claims were absurd. In relation to the Smart murders, he argued that Peter Smart had gone on a killing spree, murdered his own wife and son, then killed himself. He claimed Peter Smart had been a friend of his who had given him keys to the house. He suggested someone else had committed the murders, and he was being framed. The prosecution dismantled every argument. The forensic evidence was overwhelming. The stolen money traced directly to Manuel. The letters to William Watt contained information only the killer could know. Witnesses testified. Experts explained the ballistics. The confessions, despite being withdrawn, were detailed and accurate. Manuel had led police to Isabel Cook's body. He knew where she was buried because he put her there. William Watt was called as a witness. The man Manuel had tormented, the man wrongly accused of murdering his own family, appeared in court on a stretcher. He had been injured in a recent road accident. He testified about the letters Manuel sent him, about the details only the killer could know, about the taunting tone of a man who enjoyed watching an innocent person suffer. The jury retired to consider their verdict. It took them 2 hours and 21 minutes. They returned with their decision: guilty on 7 counts of murder. The charge of murdering Anne Nealons was dropped due to insufficient evidence, though Manuel had confessed to it. The jury convicted him of killing Marion Watt, Vivian Watt, Margaret Brown, Isabel Cook, Peter Smart, Doris Smart, and Michael Smart. Lord Cameron sentenced Peter Manuel to death by hanging. The execution was scheduled for June 19, 1958. Manuel appealed. The appeal was heard on June 24th and 25th. It was dismissed. A new execution date was set: Friday, July 11, 1958.
In the condemned suite at Barlinnie Prison, Manuel tried to feign insanity. He sat on his bed, refusing to talk to the death watch warders. He listened to the radio he had been allowed. As a Catholic, he received visits from Father Smith. His mother, Bridget, visited him. On one visit, in the presence of Father Smith, she became enraged at his behavior. She slapped him across the face. "You cannot fool me," she told him. She knew her son was sane. She knew what he had done, and she knew he could not escape justice.
At 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday, July 11, 1958, executioner Harry Allen, assisted by Harold Smith, led Peter Manuel the few paces from the condemned cell to the gallows. Manuel was calm. His last words were reportedly, "Turn on the radio and I will go quietly." The trapdoor opened. Peter Manuel dropped. His neck broke. Scotland's worst serial killer was dead. He was 31 years old. Peter Manuel was born in New York City on March 13, 1927. His parents were Scottish immigrants who had gone to America seeking a better life during the Depression. When his father, Samuel, became ill, the family returned to Scotland, first to Motherwell in 1932, then to Coventry in 1937. By age 12, Manuel was in trouble with the law. He was convicted of burglary, theft, and indecent assault. He escaped from Borstal 10 times. In 1946, the family moved to Birkinshaw. Manuel was obsessed with American gangsters. He tried to emulate them. He was 5 feet 4 inches tall, slight in build, but he carried himself with arrogance. He believed he was smarter than everyone else, smarter than the police, smarter than judges and juries. He thought he could get away with anything. In 1946, he attacked and raped a woman. He was sentenced to 9 years in Peterhead Prison. Released in 1953, he moved back to Glasgow, where his parents now lived. He had a girlfriend, Anna O'Hara. They were engaged to be married on July 30, 1955, but Anna discovered his criminal record and broke off the engagement. That same day, Manuel took out his anger on 29-year-old Mary McLachlan. He abducted her and threatened to decapitate her. She escaped. She would be the only one of his later victims to survive and testify against him. Manuel began killing in January 1956. Over the next 2 years, he murdered at least 8 people, possibly more. He showed no remorse, no empathy, no humanity. He killed because he enjoyed it. He killed because he could. He killed families in their beds, young girls walking to dances, taxi drivers giving him lifts. He was a predator who saw other human beings as objects to be used and discarded. The Smart family were innocent victims of a monster. Peter Smart worked hard as a building contractor manager. He saved money for a family holiday. He celebrated Hogmanay with his wife and son, looking forward to 1958. Doris Smart kept their home, cared for their son, lived a quiet, respectable life in Uddingston. Michael Smart was 11 years old. He went to school. He played with friends. He had his whole life ahead of him. On the night of December 31, 1957, they went to bed after celebrating the new year. They never woke up. Peter Manuel broke into their home and shot them all in the head while they slept. Then he lived in their house for a week, eating their food, feeding their cat, going through their belongings as if he owned the place. He showed their bodies no more respect than he showed their possessions. The murders terrorized Lanarkshire. Families locked their doors. Parents kept their children close. Young people stopped going out at night. Nobody felt safe. The beast of Birkinshaw, as the media called the unknown killer, could strike anywhere, anytime. He broke into homes. He stalked victims. He killed without pattern or reason. When Manuel was finally caught and executed, the relief was immense. People slept easier. The nightmare was over. But for the families of his victims, the pain never ended. William Watt lost his wife, his daughter, and his sister-in-law. He was wrongly accused of their murders and spent over 2 months in prison. Even after being released, people whispered. Some still believed he was guilty. He lived the rest of his life under that shadow. The Cook family lost their 17-year-old daughter, Isabel. She went to a dance and never came home. They searched for her for 19 days, hoping she was alive somewhere, praying for good news. Instead, a serial killer led police to her grave. The Smart family were wiped out: Peter, Doris, and Michael, an entire family erased in one night by a man who felt nothing as he pulled the trigger 3 times. Their extended family grieved, their friends mourned, their community was shaken to its core. Peter Manuel murdered at least 8 people. Some believe the number was higher. Northumbria police would have charged him with Sydney Dunn's murder had he been acquitted of the Scottish killings. There may have been others, unsolved cases, missing people, victims whose bodies were never found. Manuel was the second to last prisoner hanged at Barlinnie Prison. Capital punishment in Scotland ended not long after his execution. He was one of the last. Some people argued he was proof that the death penalty should remain. Others said his execution changed nothing. The debate continues to this day. The Smart family murder remains one of the most horrific crimes in Scottish history. A family killed in their beds on New Year's Day. A killer who stayed in their house for a week, living among their corpses. A man so devoid of humanity that he could shoot an 11-year-old boy in the head and then calmly feed the family cat. Peter Smart, Doris Smart, and Michael Smart deserved better. They deserved to celebrate New Year's Day 1958. They deserved the holiday Peter had been saving for. They deserved to live. Instead, they became victims of Peter Manuel, the Beast of Birkinshaw, Scotland's worst serial killer.